everyone, let's sculpt a little piggy in Blender. Going to start with a very simple base mesh, just the main shapes, the big body, the head, and then we're gonna do the rest in sculpting using dynamic topology in Blender. So I'm going to adjust the scene here a little and then spend a bit of time doing the basic model, and then we're gonna move on to sculpting straight away. At some point in the video, I'm going to turn on the screencast key, so you'll see all the shortcuts I'm pressing, because I don't want to talk about and repeat the shortcuts, especially if people have their own setup. My shortcuts are like all the ones that come with Blender. I didn't find a need to change them when I moved to Blender from Maya. So whatever the defaults are, that's the ones I have. I'm going to be shaping, the main body, the head, the big round body, and then the rest of the smaller details like the ears and the legs, those are going to come in when sculpting. So this first hour of sculpting is going to be me just doing sort of a concept sculpt, if you will, at which point everything can change because it's, dynamic topology, right? We're not constrained to anything really. So it's just a very nice approach, and that's also why I'm doing it. I just thought I'll test it out. I don't get to do it in my day job too much, so I always experiment in my free time with stuff like this. And I'll keep the video real time, so that's easy to follow. And if you can easily, I guess, put up the speed in the video playback if you want it to go a bit faster if it's too slow. But personally, I'm not a big fan of time lapses at all, and even sped up videos kind of show a bit of a wrong impression of how an artist actually works. I myself have seen like a ton of tutorials, and I think I even had an issue where I've seen so many sped up tutorials that I also tried working in that same sort of speed, which is obviously not possible, but that kind of just made me not think about what I'm doing. So keeping it real time, so you see exactly how fast or slow I made this. And it kind of makes me think about the time as well, but more often than not, just doing things slowly and thinking about what you're doing is still going to give a faster result than just rushing. So I'm still not really sure what I want these videos to be, just because there's just so many tutorials already about using this and using that in Blender. So I was hoping I could make it a bit more just about art and kind of studying and learning and how to go about things, or at least what I do in my free time to learn more, and not so much about clicking this or that button or using this or that tool in Blender. I will try to mention it, but you'll see in this whole sculpting phase, I really don't use that much. It's very basic, few brushes. I'm not going too crazy or anything. So first I did the Subdivision Modifier now to obviously give some more polygons, and I'm just going to smooth out the shapes of my very simple base mesh. I changed the mode to simple, so it kind of subdivides but doesn't smooth it, just so I have that control. But then I see that in sculpting mode it doesn't pick it up, so I apply the modifier, and then there we go. We can change the shapes around using the grab brush for now. Again, shortcuts I think are going to come in at like minute 10 after I go a bit more in. The shortcut for grab brush is, G. Just like the first letter of the word. I feel like I should mention that I decided to do this and kind of just post it out there, just to kind of test out my new setup, because I've made a few tutorials and I got a lot of feedback about audio being shit. So trying to improve on that. So hopefully you can let me know if this sounds nice on all the different kind of systems people are listening to. So ignore the errors there, whatever it's saying, I don't care. Let's just go ahead. That was just me pressing a wrong shortcut. I don't use the manipulators and Blender. That's why I was so confused. So see, I have Dyntopo on, and I'm going to keep it to like relative detail. Well, I'm going to decrease the detail size later on to, well, have more detail. And you see I'm just trying to pull out the legs of the pig, which is, I mean, it's just so nice to have this option. Obviously, you can do this in ZBrush as well, but we're in Blender now. So I'm just going to pull the main shapes out and try to get the silhouette read for the pig. You have to keep in mind, though, when working on with this, is that not all brushes like apply the Dyntopo, because say if you do it and then you're just using the grab brush, that's not going to Dyntopo the mesh. So sometimes it's good to just like take a default brush and just tap around, so the mesh gets like divided to the like the detail level, and then kind of go on with the sculpting. Just something to like be aware of, because you can run into a problem where you think you have it set to a certain detail, but it's not doing it. So that's why you see me kind of going around the whole thing, kind of tapping and smoothing, just to have that level of detail across. I probably didn't even need to make the whole like base mesh from a cube. Could have just started with like a sphere or something, but I did it just because I'm not that experienced or comfortable with sculpting from like a completely different shape. It's a preference thing, of course. I like having it like just a tiny bit closer to what the final is than a sphere, but it's perfectly fine to use whatever, because you can obviously just shape things around very easily now. So let's make that butt look nice and round. We're going to be working on that for a little while. So yeah, at this point, I just want kind of the main things in before going down into the details. So you can see me using just like the main brush, and I'm jumping to grab brush. I think for the most part, I will be using grab, like the default kind of standard brush, and then the draw brush, and then a bit of pinch. Nothing more than that. Not that I can recall, but yeah, it's very simple stuff. So in ZBrush, it would be like the standard brush. Well, yeah, pinch again, and then there's like a slash brush or something along those lines. I've been keeping to Blender for what I need to do, because sadly I don't get to do super complicated sculpts. Anyway, yeah. So here's like the full concept sheet that I've made for like a little something I'm kind of just fiddling at in my free time. So the piggy is just one of the smaller elements in the whole set. So this piggy in this whole tea set is something that would be called a tea pet. It comes from China, and it's like kept by like tea lovers as a good luck charm. So while drinking tea, you would just pour some tea on top of the figurine. They're made out of clay, usually. So I thought it's like a nice element because there's so many different ones. So, one evening I just got a bit crazy Googling all the different kinds, and that's where I found the piggy. And this whole set for me is like a nice little exercise whenever I, feel like just sitting down for half an hour and modeling something and experimenting with something. So I think, I will be going through like, the rest of these. There's a little something in each to learn, and then I would want to go in and do hand-painted textures on all of them. So there's just even more experimenting to do over there, which is pretty much what I do in my in my free time and while doing art, is just try out a lot of different things. It's fun. You'll notice me not stepping up in the detail level and like trying to even do the folds, even though I don't have enough like polygons to really do those folds. But I don't want to step up the subdivision level, or not a subdivision level, like the detail level in this case, just because it creates more trouble if the underlying structure is not there yet, which it's not at this point. So I'm really going to try and add as much as I can with as low subdivisions levels as I can before moving on, because that's going to make it much easier later on. So you see, I'm not in a hurry to add detail. It kind of looks weird, yeah, I'm trying to shape the ear, but obviously I don't have enough details in there. But that's not to worry about, that it's always easy to add detail, and the better the shapes look when they're this low poly, the easier it's going to be for us later to add all the details that we want. And hey, the screencast keys are in. So yeah, you can check the bottom right corner to see what I'm pressing. It doesn't work in certain cases, I noticed. For example, to select different brushes, like for some of them, it's enough to press a shortcut, but for others, you have to like press space, which is like a tool selection thing in my case. That might be one shortcut I changed. Oh, well. Anyway, so yeah, sometimes when I press space and then I click a shortcut for the brush, but it doesn't show. So it'll show that I pressed space, but it won't show what I pressed on a shortcut. But then again, if you go into the tool settings, if you're in Sculpt mode and press space, then you'll see all the shortcuts for all the different brushes. So, I don't need to tell you, you don't need to see it in the screencast. It's all there for you if you want to memorize it. But some of them are just like a little weird. Like, you have to move your hand a bit far away to press it. So, yeah, I'll just sometimes just select it by hand. Yeah, whatever works. Probably one of the most important things when doing 3D and sculpting especially is to just always rotate around your mesh and see it from all the different angles, because it's easy to get locked on a certain angle and try to make it perfect from that, but it needs to be good looking from everywhere. So you'll see me look from the side, from the top, from like 3/4, from everywhere, just to make sure that it looks nice, because you won't notice certain details, obviously, from a single angle. And it's going to depend, right? Like, where is it going to sit in the end? Like, if you are doing this to, say, overpaint for some illustration, and a specific angle that this is going to be seen from, then obviously you don't have to worry about all the other angles and making it look perfect from everywhere. But if it's like a game asset that's going to be like picked up by the player and he can rotate it around, then you probably want to make it look quite nice from everywhere. Like in my case, I sort of maybe have an idea that it would appear in the end in the kind of angle where my concept is. But I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I'll spend the time and make sure the belly, it looks nice and everything. But that's my issue that you don't need to have. So I didn't go through like the settings and more like the tools I'm using for this, like Dyntopo, and what's the setup there, what are the different options, because I feel that there's a lot of tutorials out there as well. Like Flip Normals, for example, have an introduction to sculpting in Blender, right, on their YouTube channel, which they go through like the options in there. So when things are out there, sometimes hopefully I can just point your way there, so you can get a more in-depth look, and I don't have to spend half an hour explaining the tool itself. It's more I hope in these videos that I do, I can be more about showing like how I use it, because there's a lot in there. You might not use it all, but this is what I find useful. So yeah, you see me go down the detail level. So like going from 12 to 8 there means that now my details are much like smaller, so the mesh is going to be subdivided more. And you can see the triangles are changing into, well, they're smaller. So if I turned on the wireframe, you would see that it's getting a much more dense mesh. So at this point, I can go in and detail things out just a little bit more precisely. Yeah, again, checking that from all the different angles to make sure. Again, the grab brush, see, it doesn't do the whole Dyntopo thing. But yeah, the most other brush will. Like I see, I barely like do a stroke. I barely do a movement before changing the angle and checking it from different sides to make sure my change is actually, well, improving it all around. Like at this point, we're still messy. We're gonna get to the more details, like more precise details a little later. Like again, as I said, this whole first hour is sort of just like a concept sculpt, I'd say. I will be staying in Dyntopo all the time, when at some point you would obviously want to move to a retopologized and clean mesh. Or not really, because, maybe again, you're doing this to overpaint stuff, like, and you don't need a clean game resolution mesh. So again, it's important what you're doing this for, because this is going to dictate like how you're going to approach it. And don't worry about it looking weird at this point. Like all the cleanliness comes just a little bit later. But I just like this approach so much. It's so easy to add all the different kind of details you want. If I wanted to do like a third pair of legs on it, I could easily do it at this point. And if you retopologize, if it's a clean, low poly mesh, you can't really do that anymore. So I will try to keep to this for the longest time, just so I have that option. But obviously, I don't have to here. I have a pretty clear concept. What do you see? Things are starting to take shape. Suddenly a pig. A weird looking one when I had the smile. Yeah. It's nice here. It feels just like drawing, because you can see like I have those like bigger polygons, but now I'm kind of, while sculpting, it's subdividing more, and it's kind of following, the new shapes that I'm making. It's such a freeing process where you don't have to be constrained by anything. I will be providing the model of this one if people want to check it out or take it further themselves, because so far I've went a lot more further than what this first part is, but I didn't record the low poly and like retopologizing part, because I don't know, that's just kind of boring, whatever. And it wouldn't even like matter too much for an asset like this. Like I've seen people just zero mesh or decimate even for like a final thing. Like if it's something that's not gonna be animated, like, does it matter? As long as it looks nice, that means it is nice, right? have to be careful with a move brush to move things around in like, small bits, sort of like, don't just grab and move it like crazy. Like you'll see me kind of nudge it more than really try to get it into the final position straight away. This reminds me that I'd like to keep these videos, these lessons, to be more like general instead of specific. So I don't want to be like, oh, use this brush if you want to achieve, like this result. Like, because I feel that sort of thing gets like old, especially in software, like in Blender, because like something that's good like one day gets outdated the other, and then the whole video is kind of like, well, useless. I don't know. I'd like it to be more about like general art stuff, and something that more people can find useful instead of just like pointing you to a brush where it's always been there for you to try out if you want to. So I wouldn't mind if you watch this and I put this in the middle of the video, haha, to see if you're watching. No, but yeah, if let me know if there's something you want me to talk about, because I don't know how much fun it is to just listen about comments of what you see happening on the screen as well. When yeah, it's kind of visible. Like it could be like anything about games industry or well, whatever you think of. I myself, I work, obviously in the game industry, now that I've mentioned it, on mobile games. So usually the art I do in my daytime is it's not like that complex, especially if we compare it to like AAA console games. My day-to-day doesn't require me to use ZBrush, for example, because there's no sculpting as much on the models. It's pretty straight, low poly, which is also why I'm fine doing like side projects like this. Quite important to keep up with what is out there as more of like used techniques, so I don't fade away into nothing and just keep doing like simple things. So I'll try out whatever Blender has to offer. I'll try out substance designers and painters, just to keep up with the rest of the kids. But I've also always been like this, like as an artist, because I'm very, I'd say, process oriented. I think more about how to approach things than like why, or like what is like the idea and feel behind it. I'm more like, hey, sculpting fun, instead of the hidden idea and making the world a better place, sort of thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm trying to improve on both parts these days. I enjoy some storytelling, and I do that more in my 2D work. So there's just an endless amount of things for me to explore. When I was starting out, I used every medium I could, oils, acrylics, gouache, markers, colored pencils, like anything. I tried my hand at like all kinds of arts, like fantasies and mechs and robots and figure drawing and landscapes. Like, I think I just enjoyed the process of doing art instead of like a specific thing. I still find it fascinating, I don't know, in a certain way, when I see somebody stick to a single thing. Like, I'm gonna do like female characters only, and that's all they do. Like, I can't do that. I have to do different. Like, if I'm doing 3D stuff at work, I am going to be drawing and painting in my free time. If I'm doing like 2D concept stuff at work, I'm going to be doing 3D in my free time. I always need to do something else just to kind of keep that curiosity going. And then in 3D, there's just so many different things. Like, again, yeah, I picked up Substance Designer. Obviously, I've been using Substance Painter as well. And then, with all the new things that Blender spits out, it's just crazy. Like, it's actually hard to keep up. And I know I'm not becoming amazing at all of these different like softwares and ways and techniques, but it kind of keeps me happy to just do all the different stuff. I used to be a bit afraid of it because I was like, I'm doing all this different stuff, so I'm kind of, whatever, like mediocre at at a lot of them. And then you see people like who stick to a certain thing become like really, really good at that certain thing, and years and years later, that's not me. But it's helped me, I think, in my work because, well, I can do almost everything, like from initial ideas, concepts to like a final in-game thing. The only things I wouldn't do is like animation and, well, coding. So that's like where I draw the line. Don't give me rigging animation. Everything else, I'll jump on it. I did find though that I need to like specialize at least a little bit. So I'm sticking to more like props and environments instead of characters. Which, yay, it's some sort of a direction for me to focus on. And it's what I enjoy, I think, the most. I'm not too fond of, drawing and sculpting different belt buckles. Nothing against belt buckles, just kind of generalizing here a lot. But when I was graduating, like, we had like industry veterans visit the university, and that was the question I asked, because that was the one thing I was worried about most. I was like, should I like keep doing all these different things? Should I do drawing and painting and then 3D as well? Because there's so much, right? And I like what stuck with me is, and the guy said like, yeah, like keep doing everything. Like everything is like useful. And obviously, that's not a direct quote, first of all, but it is, right. Like even things outside of art can help your art. And I did find that if I spend like a month not drawing, but doing more 3D stuff, when I come back to drawing, I'm still somehow like better at it, just because 3D and 2D, like they go hand in hand, right? Like with 3D, you get to know the shapes better. So you start to have that 3D thinking, which helps when you're drawing because you're thinking more in shape and 3D and volume instead of like 2D. You have more of like a construction knowledge of things instead of, well, not having it. And even having that break from 2D or 3D is refreshing, from time to time. So I'm always as excited as I can be to do art. And that's because I do different kind of art all the time. If you look at my portfolio, like it's just a massive amount of different kind of things. Like it's, in a way, I don't have an identity, but hey, I can do whatever you ask me of, kind of, sort of, to a degree, obviously. But yeah, I enjoy art for art's sake. But then another suggestion I was given like years and years ago when I was before I got anywhere with art. It was at the point where I was also like doing all kinds of different things in 3D and 2D and different mediums and genres and topics and whatever. And someone suggested that I stick to a single thing. And then they give an example of themselves because they had a friend who did all the different stuff while he himself stuck to doing like specific like 2D and characters, or was it environments that he was doing. And in time, like he caught up to his friend and got even a lot better because of that, because he stuck to a specific thing and got so good at it, while his friend kind of kept jumping around from things and never reached that like kind of mastery level in a specific area. So that's something to think about. Yeah, you can ask yourself, I guess, like, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? And what makes you happy to do and work on, for 12 hours a day or something. And when I say 12 hours a day, is not my day job. That's crunchy. No, that's day job plus my free time kind of work. Like mobile game industry is actually pretty good with not having crunch time, I'd say. Like if you want to get into games, don't shy away from mobile games. The thing is what I just mentioned, is that there's going to be a big difference from project to project, right? You can have all these hyper casual games that, they're being made like in 2 weeks and just spit out. So obviously you're not going to do very intense artwork on those, but there's also like very like AAA sort of quality even in art within the mobile games. So there's options and there's huge differences. And I think it's a bit more fun if you want to do like different things, like different not necessarily techniques, but different art styles. There's a bit more difference. It's not so much all same, kind of make it look as real as possible. But that's also just kind of a plus for me, because I don't really like realistic things so much. Like sometimes I do. Again, it's one of those things where I've done stylized for long enough and I want to do something realistic, then I find it fun for a project or so. But overall, I'm trying to stick to stylized a lot more, because it's just a bit more fun to get that twist on reality instead of trying to replicate every like wood detail on something. I like to see how it can be twisted and pulled and like made it represented, like have a representation of it instead of having like an actual exact copy. So let's see where we are with the sculpt while I'm rambling on random things. Yeah, we got a little bit further with the face. That's nice. So we're gonna keep on going. I'm still using like the same brushes I've mentioned, so there's nothing really crazy going on. And finally, we have enough detail so I can start adding the wrinkles. For this specific mesh, it's going to be very important to show, and at least what I've tried showing is obviously like the fatness of the pig and like all these fat folds kind of rolling on each other. And I wanted it to be like, I don't know, like not jello, but like a piece of dough almost, it should be like spreading more at the bottom and then kind of a bit thinner at the top, just to show like the heaviness of the pig. I don't know if I like reached it in the end, like definitely not in the Dyntopo, like in the beginning stages, but later on that was what was on my mind. So now just going through and indicating where folds are gonna go. Again, I'm sort of like still figuring out, because the concept is like, it's fine enough, but it also is a very much like just a rough indication. And here I have to work things out in 3D. So there's a bit more to it to make it kind of look believable. So I'm always going through this process of like adding detail and smoothing things out, like adding a bit and smoothing things out. And at this point, like I also still don't have enough details to like add every tiny bit, but I have enough to get a pretty good representation of where things are going to go, which is going to make it much easier for me later on when I have the clean mesh. Like it already has a, it's at least starting to get that feel that I want, like, that I have in the concept. Like it just kind of plopped on the ground. It's just such a fun little sculpt to work on, which I find so nice. I can sit down, spend an hour, kind of zoning out and sculpting, and have something kind of cute and funny in the end. I'm wondering now about like the gray area of this like design, right? Because I used reference to make the concept you see in the background there, but then I'm figuring out so much of the stuff. Well, in 3D, like I'm not looking at the 3D, but at the photo reference at this stage anymore. I don't even remember how it looks as much, like especially in all the little detail areas, because I've done the concepts like months ago, I think, before picking it up again now. Because also like the point of this is also not for me to copy exactly what I've seen back then. It's to add some of like what I know, what I want to do, sort of like not be constrained to it, because I'm not a very big fan of, as I said, copying exactly. Like I find it good for studying. Like that's a perfect way to approach a thing. You just you do like master copies, right? That's like a perfectly legit way to approach and learn something, or like sculpt something exactly as you see in like photo reference, trying to replicate the details. But going back to what I was talking in the beginning about like why you're doing this, like, well, why for me in this is to, I don't know, like have fun, most importantly. And then, I explore a little bit of Blender's sculpting, see how far it can get me. And at this point, like for this reason, I don't want to be stuck to try and copy like a photo reference. So I have like not a loose, like a pretty drawing of it. And that's like more than enough for me to go on and then figure out the rest in the sculpt and just see how easy or how hard it is to, do that, like to do the figuring out part. So I'm going to, again, try and get the most details I can from like the current detail level of the Dyntopo that I have. So you'll notice again that it's not enough to get like a proper look but I'm still kind of pushing for it because I want to get as far as I can before adding any more detail. This is all an indication. Again, take this as a concept sculpt that can be taken to final fairly easily and quickly later on. And honestly, it has such a appealing look to me for some reason, you know, where you have like more detailed areas now where I worked on those wrinkles, and then you see the back leg is still like so low poly. Like I'm pretty sure I've seen like works of art, you know, like sculptures being done in this way, where that whole thing was such a cool effect. Well, in 3D, you know, this just kind of happens organically without you trying to do it. I'm checking it from far away as well, looking around to see if the shapes read well. For something stylized, you want to like exaggerate like the pinch areas, like sort of like, you know, the bevels, so like the edges. You want them to be, I don't know, like twice as thick as you think, or as it like would be, just so it reads better from far away. Say, like, I think the sharpest edge I have here is on the ear, and I don't want to make that edge too thin, because then when you zoom out, there's just kind of not enough of an edge to catch a highlight, or that highlight is gonna, you know, appear as like 3 pixels. It's just gonna look ugly. So if I exaggerate the thickness of it, then it's going to look nice from up close, and it's going to look nice from far away as well. And obviously, when this is going to be such a small part of the whole scene, there's a need to exaggerate things like that. So when it appears really small in the end, it's going to look much nicer. I'm going to go through the whole mesh, obviously, to add the extra detail level. Yeah, nothing really new, as you see in the techniques. I'm using the same brushes, just adding a bit more detail level, and I'm kind of repeating that same process that I was doing. It's just that I have a bit more polygons to work with, and I can get a bit more out of it, but like slowly, gradually building up that detail is going to help. And that's the usual approach when you're doing organic sculpting, is you get the most out of each detail level, each subdivision level, before moving on to the next one, because you're always building upon something. And if the underlying shapes are wrong, then obviously all the details that go on top of it are also going to be wrong. I feel like my voice is breaking. I'm not used to talking this much. I'm usually the quiet person, you know. I talk when I have things to say. Does this mean I have things to say? Because I've been rambling on for 40-something minutes already. I don't know. Maybe it's all nonsense. At this point, there's only a few areas left that I haven't touched with this higher detail level. And there's obviously the tail. But the tail I thought would be easier to make in a bit of a different way. So you'll see that. And I didn't use like the snake hook or the snake brush here, right, to extrude it out from the Dyntopo. I've made it separately, and then I connected it later on to the low poly. But that's wasn't part of this video, the low poly part, as I've mentioned. This is just the Dyntopo part. So let's try and get the most detail out of everything. Even like it's exaggerating in some areas, but that's still okay. The polygon, it's still like a low enough level that it's so easy to work with. Yeah, so I'm not too worried about like messing things up if it looks like like it's a little bit off. Or you can't really mess it up, right? Because it all kind of changes when you're sculpting, right? It creates that new topology wherever you're sculpting. It is nice. There's this connection now, on the leg and the body that I don't really like. But at this point, I'm keeping in mind that I will be, making the pig a bit fatter, and I'll have the belly kind of flop out. So they're going to touch more instead of have that kind of weird connection that it does now. So it's good to also be confident in your approach and know what's going to come next, and how you're going to fix these sort of areas. So it's okay. It's okay to have it now. Like, it's obvious that not everything needs to be looking amazing from the beginning to an end. At this stage, I want basic shapes to look nice. I want the first, like, not the tiniest details, but like the kind of first hint of the details to look nice, but like still like the big details, I guess. And then the rest is just going to come later on. So I guess there's just different things to kind of worry about at different stages. And at this stage, I'm just really not worried about some weird connections that did happen because I pulled this leg out with a snake hook, right? But yeah, that's fine. I mean, I want to say in real life, if this pig was like this, or like, I don't know, do you have pigs like that? That's hopefully not. But like when you have two things touching, like a hand touching the body, like obviously the flesh is going to kind of squeeze into each other. So, and when in 3D, it usually kind of goes through in rigs and animations, or it has some like simulation on top of that to fix it. But yeah, it's just in the end I can go for a more real look. At this point, having these issues is, I take it as part of the process. There's an addition of an extra brush here that I may have been using that I haven't noticed or haven't mentioned, but the Inflate Brushes is very nice, especially when you draw out like the wrinkles, to use the Inflate. So it kind of really thickens them up, makes them kind of fold in on each other in a way. So it does start to give this like fatness look on things. I think all in all, like what I use, maybe like 6 brushes in here, and you may have noticed at some points that I have some extra brushes in Blender, but I haven't used them for this. There's like, if you're familiar with ZBrush, you had these orb brushes. So there was a set of them for Blender as well, which I find them amazing to use for like more hard kind of surface type of sculpting, like for rocks. But I haven't tried them for something organic. It would probably be very nice as well. Also, they're really good for like more stylized stuff. All right, it's getting pretty nice and smooth. Well, it's like still a bit bumpy in areas. Again, that's not something we need to worry about in this stage. In this stage, as I've mentioned multiple times, it's just about indication where things are. So then it helps later on, since I do want to make this like a low poly sort of game mesh, it helps me later on to see where I'm going to put the topology, because this is obviously not an animated mesh. I don't have to worry about like loops going the right way. So I'm going to put the topology where the details are. So then when I'm adding like the very, very fine details, or as fine as they would get in this, because I'm not, doing skin pores or anything. But whenever I'm adding details, I'm not going to have to go to a super high subdivision level, because all of my topology is going to follow the details, right? Which is, I guess, sort of what the Dyntopo is doing, but Dyntopo is like a very messy, triangulated mesh, right? It's not a final sort of sculpt that you want. Yeah. Later on, the process would be to retopologize low poly and then apply a multi-resolution modifier to have the subdivision levels that we can jump back and forth on. So I'm more of a kind of usual sculpting technique. But this is so nice to have for just like concept sculpting and figuring things out. Yeah, see, the inflate brush on the fat folds. Sexy. I'm sorry about some of that. I mean, I've been inside for so long. I think I'm losing my mind a little bit in all this pandemic bullshit. You'll have to excuse me. For whatever reason, the fat folds are really fun to sculpt. I don't know. I can't put my head around it on why, but it is. Anyway, it looks like we're like 5 minutes away from ending this part of the video. So I'd like to ask, if you've made it this far, then you're the one I want to ask. It's like, if the stuff I'm talking about makes any sort of sense, or does it just sound like a crazy dude rambling? And, give me like questions, ideas of what you'd like me to talk about. Because again, as I've mentioned, I don't want to go so much about use this brush for this and use that brush for that. Because there are like common approaches, but also art is like so much about, like you learn, you do stuff your own way, right? One thing doesn't work for everybody. So I don't want to go so much about teaching the specifics of a software. Oh, and we're starting to do the tail. Hey, we're just going to do like a line, and then we're going to, I see what's happening. But yeah, like when it comes to this sort of modeling, I'm usually doing things as simple as possible is my way. So here, just using like obviously a curve is so much simpler than anything else. And then I can just give it thickness to make it a cylinder, do some scaling, and it's going to be done. You'll see, it's easy. But as I was talking, yeah, give me something to like talk about, because otherwise I was thinking, since I don't want to do so much like a step-by-step, click this button when this happens and this button if you want that, I would probably like to just talk about more of like a making of, kind of go through like a project instead of like again, as I said, like a step-by-step guide. Because as much as I'm interested in like how things are done, I want to explore more of like why too, and just the, I don't know, just the whole idea of doing things instead of the technical part of it. But speaking of technical part, yeah, I've just gave it some thickness, and you see I'm just adjusting the profile to make it round. It doesn't have to be perfect in this stage. And then Alt S will scale down so I can make it a tail. I don't know if I could have done it with a snake brush, but this was the first thing that came to my mind, so I went with it. Since I knew that I'm gonna retopo anyway. Even though these meshes could be easily connected together, right? I just didn't know what kind of mess it's going to create if I do it, so I kept it clean, because it's at this point the only part that's asymmetrical from the whole mesh, so I didn't want to have it part of it at this stage. Anyway, we're really nearing the end now, so let me know what you think and what you'd like to see. And especially if the sound is okay in this video, if you're having, if it's too low, too high, or anything, yeah, give me feedback so I can improve on this and future tutorials. I will leave a link to the other stuff I've made, which with lesser sound quality than this, but more technique oriented, more tutorials following the full process of things. You might find that useful if you're starting out in Blender, especially. So thank you for watching. I hope it wasn't a waste of an hour for you. Have fun creating things. I'd love to see if you make something after watching this video. And good luck. Keep enjoying art.